maybe that's fine. If you could just hold it like that. You don't even have to hold it that high. Just hold it down and he can come right down and get it there. The constellation Sagittarius. And that's the part horse, part man, and the archer with the bow and the arrow. You know, there's something that I'll just refresh your minds if maybe some of you have not been here before. But each constellation has what they call 3 decans. D-E-C-A-N-S, which means 10. And the 3 decans make up 30 degrees of each constellation. So you have 12 constellations, 30 degrees, you're 360 degrees of the zodiacal circle. And the 3 decans of Sagittarius, and if you just turn your page, you'll see them. The first one you'll see is Lyra, which is the harp. Okay? Boy, there's a lot of activity going around on that one, isn't there? And the second decan that you'll see is Ara, the altar. And the third one is Draco, the dragon. Dun, 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 dun. So that's what we've got to contend with in Sagittarius. Now let's take a look at Sagittarius. In Sagittarius, we see the horse. Well, there's one thing right there. In mysticism, the word horse means wisdom. That's the 4 horses of the apocalypse. Understanding. The red horse being your emotional nature. The black horse being your intellectual nature. The white horse, your spiritual nature. The pale horse, your physical nature. Horse means understanding. Do you remember when the Apostle Paul had a revelation? In fact, he had an out-of-body experience. It says, on the road to Damascus, he was knocked off of his horse by this tremendous light. It doesn't have anything to do with a real horse, okay? This is mysticism. It means that his human wisdom, his human understanding was knocked out from under him by this great enlightenment that he had from that which was Christ consciousness. Okay? And if you remember, he was blinded. Simply, he was no longer able to see the things that he had seen before. The things that he had looked at before, he no longer could see. Now he was seeing divine things. Just like when you turn on Christian television now. You can't see it anymore. In the old days, you lived by it. I mean, whether it was Jimmy Swaggart or Copley, I mean, you lived by that. You hung on every word. Now you turn it on and off you go. Because you don't see things that way anymore. You're seeing things through Christ consciousness. And that's where the horse means wisdom. So as you look at Sagittarius, you see that, the horse, and then you see the man, which is God's son. The man represents the mind, or God's son. And then you have the bow and the arrow. And you know what mysticism said? Let's take a look at the bow or the arrow. This is interesting. The bow and the arrow. And what the ancient mystics from the East said was the bow was Om. And out of Om comes the arrow, or the direction, the new direction of the human mind, the new direction of the divine mind. Out of Om, the mind then rises like an arrow up into the place of God. And that's with the bow and that's with the arrow. It's always been that way. So everything there, I mean, you have to say to yourself, inasmuch as Sagittarius, the picture of Sagittarius has been in the sky for millions of years, who drew the dots? In other words, who drew the picture around the stars? And of course we know, as it says, that God created the stars, God named the stars, he said, let them be for signs. When you look at Sagittarius, it's good if you open to the book of Revelation, which is the very last book in the Bible, so it's an easy one to find. And in the book of Revelation, if you'll go to page 229 in those little Bibles that you have, for the rest of you go to Revelation chapter 6. All right? Revelation chapter 6. And we'll go to verse 2. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. See, the word Sagittarius means the archer. That's what it means. Sagittarius means the archer. The white horse, his wisdom is pure and holy. He shoots high above the earth to rise from the lower up into the higher nature. And you can see him, see. He shoots arrows against the enemies of our minds. Let's take a look in page 492 of the Old Testament, Psalm 58, verse 7. Okay? Psalm 58 and verse 7. Let's take a look at that, see what that says. Okay, Psalm 58. Let them melt away as waters which run continually. When he bends his bow to shoot his arrows, let them be as cut in pieces. Let what be? Let what be? Let what be cut in pieces? Let them melt away when he bends his bow. In other words, when Om is the bow. Om is the bow. When Om rises out of you in great meditation, and that mind of yours rises as an arrow up into the air, which is the third stage of consciousness, let them melt away. Let those hideous thoughts and the expressions that come out of the negativity of the lower mind, let all of that melt away. Let all of that be cut into pieces, you know, as the arrow is shot. There's something important to notice about Sagittarius in the picture. Take a look at that picture now. It's important. I want to show you something. There is something going right through the head of Sagittarius, and it's called the ecliptic. Okay? The ecliptic. The ecliptic is the root of the sun. That is the passageway of the sun. And it goes right through the consciousness, right through the head. The ecliptic, that path of the sun, enters into that which is the higher consciousness of Sagittarius. And what this means is it's not in the south connected with physical sufferings. This is above. This is divine power. This is a picture or a drawing from God of divine power. If you look, and let me see, do you have this with you? These are the pictures of your little star signs, okay? And if you'll take a look at D, you see D down the lower left-hand corner? Go to D24. You see Sagittarius? Now, I want to show you how the Bible was written in the stars before it was ever written in the paper or on paper. Do you see Sagittarius at D24? Okay, look what Sagittarius is aiming his arrow at. Scorpio. The scorpion. Do you see it? Is it a coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. Because out of the bow, out of the Om, the conscious rises, and it directs this arrow of defeat at that which represents the lower mind, the lust, and all of the things of the flesh, Scorpio. There's an interesting thing. If you look, sometimes you get a chance to look at it, Scorpio being the 8th sign in the astrological chart, but Michelangelo, who I believe was, did Michelangelo or did Leonardo da Vinci paint the Last Supper? All right, Leonardo da Vinci. He was an astrologer. Very little known about that, but Leonardo da Vinci was an astrologer, and he painted the Last Supper as the zodiac, with Jesus being the sun, surrounded by the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the 8th one from the beginning, or the 8th one from the left, which would be Scorpio, is Judas. He made Judas the 8th from the left, because he is the one that stings and kills, you see. That's an interesting thing, and a little known fact. So if you learn nothing else here tonight, you'll know that Leonardo da Vinci was a great painter, but he was also an astrologer, and he astrologically placed the his disciples in the picture in accordance with the zodiacal chart. That's an interesting thing, too, because if you look, I don't know where it is. There's one thing that we have running around here about the sons of Jacob and how they're named after the signs of the zodiac, and that's something you'd want to check. And for those of you who may be watching this from all over the country, if you'd like some of these papers and charts or something, just drop me a line and I'll send them to you, okay? If you want to put in a little couple of stamps, that's nice too, but you don't have to do that, okay? That's about as demanding as we get. You know, we don't have any old handkerchiefs to send you or anything like that, but if you can throw a couple of stamps this way, that would be nice. So Sagittarius fulfills the scripture of he who comes on the horse so as to conquer the lower enemy. And there's something else about Sagittarius that you have to understand. He has risen from the lower nature up into the higher nature. He has risen from that which is the horse or the animal nature and has risen up into that which is the human nature, the physical nature. In Psalm 64:7, now that's a good one to look at. You're in the book of Psalms anyhow. Go to Psalm 64. And let's take a look at Psalm 64, verse 7. God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. They shall make their own tongues to fall upon themselves, and all that see them shall flee away. God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly they shall be wounded. When I ever looked at this thing, I don't know how many of you, when I've ever, in my younger years, read the Bible, I always had problems with God. Because I said, what is this guy? You know, he's going to have an Armageddon. He's going to burn up the world. He's shooting people with arrows. Kids are getting, he's telling people to go in and kill all the kids. What is it? Don't take any prisoners and all this stuff. And yet everybody's telling me God is love. And we're singing sweet songs. I walk in the valley alone with the dew on. And this is guys are plotting an atomic war with you. What are you going to walk with him for? He's shooting arrows at people, killing everybody. Don't take any prisoners. He tells Aaron, go into the town. Don't take any prisoners. Kill all the men, women, and children. Oh, my God. I want to walk in the valley alone with this guy? I want a whole army with me if I'm going to take a walk with this guy. And then I began to see things and began to understand things because I got past the literalism of all of that. If God is shooting arrows at anything, God is shooting arrows at those thoughts, those things that are deep within us that hurt us, and suddenly they shall be wounded. Out of Om, the bow, comes the arrow, which is the higher mind, and these are the things which cause the negativity to fail, cause the sickness to fail, cause all of the desires and the hurts and the hates that accumulate within us to fail. So the constellation Sagittarius actually is Christ in you. It is the wisdom of the horse. It is God's Son, the man, following the sun, which is that ecliptic you see and going right through. It's overcoming power against the enemy. Okay? Now, as we look at Sagittarius, let's take a look at the very first decan in Sagittarius, which is an interesting one. It's Lyra, or Lyra, if you want to, the harp. Okay? Lyra, the harp. When you look at this, there is always a duality in all things, okay? There is Apollo, who is the sun. We're going to have this. Apollo, who is the sun, but in the higher realm, you know what Apollo did? Apollo played the harp. Apollo would play the harp. He would bring harmony. But Apollo had another part to him, which was known as Python. It was also the sun. And it was, namely, that the sun can give life, the sun can give healing, the sun can give beauty, but the sun can also burn. The sun can also destroy. The sun can also cause fire. And it was the duality of those two. But while Apollo was playing Lyra, all things were in harmony. So while the sun was passing through the harp, there was harmony. There was harmony of consciousness. All of the things that you ever see in the Bible when it talks about make a joyful noise, play musical instruments. Musical instruments in the scriptures always mean that which is harmony. I was reading something and I was sharing it with Joan, and I was sharing it with Judy the other evening. It was so beautiful. And one of these days I'm going to have to get back to it because remember we did all the studies on Buddha. Did about, 48 weeks on Buddha. And I came upon something so beautiful because it says, when the Shakyamuni Buddha came up to the Bodhi tree to find enlightenment, you see, he walked over to the west side and stood there. And as he did, he looked, and everything before him sunk down into the pits of hell. And he said, this couldn't be. And he walked to the south side. And as he stood there, the earth moved down to the pits of hell, and he left and he went over to the north side and he said, yes, it must be. And as he was talking, he began then to sink into the pits of hell, and then he found the east, and everything came in harmony, everything came in balance, everything came in a oneness. See? And it says in the ancient Buddhic scriptures, it says, because it is in the east where the gods assemble. And so, as he was in balance, and here he was at the east, he began to find this place of everlasting celestial glory, and there in the east, coming against him, was the Lord of Death and the Lord of Desire, and the Lord of Desire came against him, and the Lord of Desire brought a beautiful dancing girl like Salome. You know, she was down here doing her, you know, Mary can do that with the veils and all that stuff. And everything was put against Buddha to distract him physically. He didn't flinch. And then came the Lord of Death, and the Lord of Death started shooting fiery darts at the Buddha, and he didn't breathe. He said, my God, what is it with this man? Nothing. He wasn't attracted by the girl. He wasn't attracted by the attractions of the flesh. He wasn't attracted. He wasn't frightened by death. What is it? But they said the Holy One, the Blessed One, had become the Buddha because he had sat in the East and he had risen above all of these things. And the most important thing that he rose against, and I want you to listen to this very carefully, he rose against me, the self. And as he rose against the self, there was no they. When there is no me, there can be no they. Do you understand? You are gone. He could not be tempted because they said if he had for 1 second thought of himself, then he would have been involved with them. And the fleshly attractions would have pulled him down. So he had to go to the East, the spot of harmony and balance within himself. And in that place of the East, the harmony and balance came, and there was no longer me, so there could not be they. And when there is no they, there is no temptation, there is no possibility of falling, because you are in the bliss of nothingness. You have achieved nirvana. You've gone where Buddhas don't exist, where Christs don't exist, where there is absolute nothing, but there is everything. And, you know, there's so much wisdom in that little story of the enlightenment of Buddha, because when we think of it, everything of our life, everything that has hurt us, everything that has depressed us, everything that we've tried to live up to the standards has been of they. What do they think? What are they going to think? What do they want me to do? How can I please them? And Buddha found the place in the East where he rose to where there was no he to please anybody, and when there was no me, there was no they. And he could not be tempted. He could not be robbed of his enlightenment. And then it said, and I wish I had it to read to you, I don't have it, but as soon as that happened, God sent from heaven petals of flowers and perfumes to touch the Holy One, who had become the Buddha. And that's you. You and me. You and me. We can sit here under our own body tree and reach that place of the East within ourselves and no longer be involved with ourselves. And when we are not involved with ourselves, there is no more they or them and no more concerns. We cannot be tempted into failure. So here's that inner harmony then when we talk, when Apollo is playing the lyre, that becomes the music of praise within us, which is the wisdom of Sagittarius. And as Sagittarius sends his arrows, as that beautiful celestial Om starts to build, when I know so many of you people, boy, I get some letters. I mean, a few years ago, the letters I get from you people, I'd have to run out of the house. But now I understand, you see. And as that music of Om starts to build within us during our meditation, and the arrows are sent up from us, up into the higher realm, up into the air, the harmony, the praise, then we know that the sun, Apollo, is playing his lyre. So at Lyra the harp, we are in a position now, because we are in harmony, that we can prepare for Ara, the altar. Don't go there yet. We're preparing. We're at Lyra the harp. And you're still in the book of Psalms. Go to page 484 in your little Bible, and Psalm 43, okay? You know what's so super about this? To understand that all of this beauty and all of this wisdom is in the stars. You can't see it tonight because here in New Jersey we're going to have a rainstorm. But as soon as, you know, when I look up and I see a red star, or I see this, or I see that, and I'm not really good at that. I don't know. I mean, the last time I looked through one of those telescopes to see, I was a little kid, about his age, and I got a sty, and I said, I'm never going to use one of those things again. Did you ever look through one of those things? And you squint your eye, and you squint, and you want to see all the stars, and you wind up, and the next day you got that red thing on your eye, and I ain't going to use that no more. Take it back. But there it is, written in the heavens. Just as God said in the first page of Genesis, look at it, first page of Genesis. He said, let there be lights in the firmament and let them be for signs. So you didn't even have to have a Bible to read. I remember people saying, well, those old people, they were lost before Jesus came because there was no Bible. That's to you. It was written there. How did the Magi read the Bible. There was no Bible. The Magi read the Bible. It took them right to where Jesus was. They read the Bible, the stars, the signs. Our old good friend Zoroaster said, you read the stars because in the sign of the Virgin there will be a star Read them and learn of he who will be born the King. Who was born? Jesus the Christ, also known as Amen Ra, Sun God. And it was Zoroaster who started sun worship, and I won't get into Zoroaster, but there is one of the guys who in my lives, wherever I go, I want to meet this guy. He is something else. He had a heck of an influence. I was telling him on television the other night, I said, you can say what you want, but somebody owes you an explanation, because the Jewish temple would have never been rebuilt unless it was for Zoroaster, and no, the wise men would have never found Jesus and announced he was king unless it was for Zoroaster. And you never heard of him. There's the guy that did the whole thing and nobody ever heard of him. But we did. Psalm 43, verse 4. Now see the connection between, take a look, you see your harp, lyra? Take a look at the next one and you'll see the altar. You see the altar? Ara? Okay? Okay, now look at Psalm 43 and see how the Bible is written in the stars. Then, Psalm 43, verse 4, then I will go unto the altar of God, unto God my exceeding joy, yea, upon the harp will I praise thee, O God, my God. Do you see the decans in the constellation Sagittarius right there? I will go to the altar, I will praise thee upon the harp, and there they are right together in the 30 degrees of Sagittarius, the harp and the altar. Well, why? Do you know why they put that in the Bible? Because God first put it in the stars. He said, let it be for signs. You know what's an amazing thing? If you go out now to Mount Palomar or all these places, they have these computerized telescopes, you know, that can see everything, and you send up, what are these things they send up? Well, not Sputniks. What are they? Come on. Satellites. They send satellites up there, and they look at all the stars and all that. It was a bunch of guys coming out of a tent. A bunch of guys coming out of the tent knew all this. They haven't hardly said anything that these guys didn't already know. How come? How did they know this? Here's a guy out there out of a tent looking like this. And he got it all. And he put it on paper. Isn't this something? He knew of the constellation Sagittarius. He knew of Lyra the harp. He knew of Ara the altar. And so he said, I will go to the altar and I will be in harmony upon my harp. I think that you talk about outer space, somebody was visiting or something. That's it. That's almost too much, but it's true. So the harp, lyra, becomes the harmony of praise within you, that you have exalted he who comes within you. And it does, it exalts. You remember sometimes we sing that song, Be Exalted, O Lord. And what does the harp do? What do you do something? Do you remember Sunday morning when we played that music? I went bonkers. Remember we played the meditation music before we preached Sunday morning? I was on Jupiter by the time we got started talking. That lifted me up. Remember the music of Angelus? It lifted me up, you see? Raised me up to such a... And I said, what a harmony. It's like a harmony of heaven. It's raised me up to the highest place of heaven. Do you know the brightest star in Lyra is one called Vega? Do you see it? Look down at the left side there, and you'll see the name of the star, Vega. Do you see it on the harp? Hello? Do you see it on the harp? I didn't. Oh, I just thought you left. I didn't know. Do you know what that means? Vega. He shall be exalted. How many times do you stand up and say, be exalted, oh God, unto the heavens? You know? Why? Because what exalts you? What really does? Emotionally, what lifts you up? Music. Music. You remember the night we went up to see Kataro up in Radio City? Everybody was, you didn't even need a seat. You were floating around. So Dave floating about 20 feet. You were floating about 20 feet off. Everybody was floating. Why? Because the music. It was spiritual music. And so the harp, its brightest star in that constellation of Lyra is called Vega, which means be exalted. So we will see in Sagittarius and Lyra, I want you to go, when you're in the book of Psalms, go to Psalm 21. Psalm 21 is on page 472 in your little Bible. Psalm 21. Okay? You with me? Do you need something, Joe? You got something I can help you with? Huh? No, is there something I can help you with that you don't understand? No, you got the right paper. Okay, Psalm 21, all right, and verse 12. Therefore shall you make them turn their back when you shall make ready your arrows upon your strings against the face of them. Be exalted, O Lord, in your own strength, so we will sing and praise your power. So you see the harmony. You see that which is the music of heaven. And you see that reference again to the strings, you know. We will be exalted through this harmony. And I want to show you something else. You might, if you take a good look at Lyra, you see something else. And I want you to see, if you would, the word and the star. Do you see the star called S-H-A-L-Y-U-K? It's a little broken up there. Shalak, S-H, well, it looks like S-H-A-L-U-K. Do you see that there? See it? You know what that means? Okay, this is what it means. It means the eagle. The eagle. Do you see the eagle coming right out of the top of the harp? You see the face of the eagle coming right out of the top of the harp? What's it reminded you? See? What overcomes the serpent? The harmony. Don't you look? Put it all together. Here we have that which is wisdom, divine wisdom, coming from the bow, from Om. You know, the man coming out of the animal nature, rising up, taking that which is Om, which is the bow, dispatching the arrow, the new direction of the renewed mind. Okay, the harmonies of heaven, right? The harmonies of heaven starting to lift you up. And all of this is brought to bear against that which is the serpent, the dragon, Draco. What is it that comes against the serpent? What is it that comes against the snake, if you would, that which is the eagle, that which is the hawk? Turn on to page 605 of your little Bible. The rest of you go to Isaiah, the book of Isaiah. It's page 605 in the little Bible, the book of Isaiah. And come with me to chapter 40 and verse 31. And what's it say? But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And there's the harmony. When you enter into that harmony, as Buddha entered into the harmony of finding himself in the presence of the East, and then he could not be surrounded by those things that had to do with the ego and the flesh. If we ever get to a point where we can let go of our own ego and what affects us and what offends us, then we move into that place of nirvana. We move into that place of blessing, and that's where the riches come from. And that's the hardest place to get. Believe me, I know this. How easy it is to get your feelings hurt. Say, even I sometimes get can you believe this? I get my feelings hurt. 2 weeks ago, when we started this thing at 7 o'clock on Tuesday nights on television, and the phone didn't ring, guess what? I sulked. Hard to believe, I know that. But that will drop you right into hell. Once that happens, then you are totally consumed in me, and when I am totally consumed in me, everything then depends on what they do or don't do. If they call, I'll be spiritual. But if they don't call, I'll be miserable. And they didn't call. Okay? Do you see what Buddha was saying? So everything depends on they. So then I could come down here and say, nobody called. And you know how hard I work. You know all the time I put into doing this. So you feel so sorry for me. And if you're feeling sorry for me, I know that I should be here because they will put their arm around me and say, don't worry. It's all right. Everything's going to be fine. Everything depended on they to call. And if they didn't call, it depended on you to lift me up. I was totally consumed in the physical. That's what religion is. That's why religion is a disaster. It's a nightmare, because it all depends on them. You know? You're depending on the congregation. You're dependent on the church. You're dependent on the pastor. And when they screw up, I'm going to make a confession. Joan will never tell you this because she doesn't even know it. Once in a while, I screw up. Hard You see? But there's where Buddha was able to overcome the fears, and he was able to overcome the desire because he rose beyond me. And he was able then to get away from they. So here then, the eagle coming out of that harmony is that what lifts you up. When you are in harmony, it lifts you up. When you are in harmony, you are in a spiritual harmony, you are in a nirvana. Mike came over the other night, brought a new disc that he and Judy had just purchased. And it was a new age disc. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. I had the basketball game on, and we turned the sound off and put this on. And Mike was staring at the basketball game and off in Never Never Land. He had, because the harmony, the beautiful, the softness and the harmony, the gentleness. So the music then, do you see the emphasis here on music? The emphasis here on the gorgeous sound, the harmony, to be in harmony and the beauty of it, to lift one up, okay? And that's what it is. So, the second decon of Sagittarius is Ara, the altar, okay? You ought to go back there and get, do we have any more of those Sagittarius, or are they all gone? Okay, if anybody's got an extra one, they could loan Frank over there so that they could see that. I don't know if you have one. But it's, it's really interesting to see this over here. Let me have it here. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Take a look at this, all right? Do you see, did you show the folks on TV, Ara, the altar? Show them once more. Everybody at home, take a look at this constellation. Ara, the altar. There's a very strange and interesting thing you should notice about the altar. It's upside down. I mean, it's in the sky upside down. Okay? It's not in the picture upside down. It's in the star pattern was drawn by whomever, the creator, upside down. It is fire pointing to the lower regions of darkness. It is the burning spirit directed towards the earth. Do you see something? Well, take a good look at it. Do you know what this is? This star, this constellation, is the exact reason that the evangelists and ministers have scared the pants out of you all of your life, saying God was going to send fire down upon the earth. That's where it came from. That's where it came from. It got into the Bible that fire is going to come down on the earth, because if you look at that constellation Ara, the fire of the altar is pointing down towards the earth. And so the whole thing turned into be a literal interpretation of God is sending fire down upon the earth. The fire is not pointing up, it's pointing down towards the earth. And that's the way the constellation is. See, the burning altar is the completion of the praise. The harp or harmony brought us to the place of fire or the spirit. In other words, we went through the transformation from the lower animal of Sagittarius to the higher divine mind of the man. We took Om, which is the bow, and set our minds in the direction of God. We then came into a harmony with God. We then rose up with wings like eagle in that harmony of meditation. And now we come to the great altar of sacrifice. And in that altar, we raise ourselves to the place of the fire, where the fire comes down, which is the spirit coming down from the higher divine consciousness to purge and burn away all of those things which have hurt us all of our lives. You see, what you're looking at, again, is interpreted in the five consciousness of Greek. Earth, water, air, fire, and the renewed mind. Okay? This is the reason for baptism. This is your lower consciousness. This is your lowest carnal mind. This is water. This is a higher realm of consciousness where God's truth comes down, but there is also deception. When you raise yourself, when you submit to the water of the higher realm of the mind, which is baptism in consciousness, you then are raised up into the air. Do you know, like when they baptize people, they put them under the water, then they bring them up into the air. Literally, it doesn't mean a blasted thing. It does nothing for you except get you wet. It has no fact or whatever. It does nothing. The whole thing is a mystical symbolism of this. You must take the earth, which is your lower mind, submit it to the higher consciousness of water, so that you can raise yourself up into the air, which is the third stage of consciousness, where there are no thoughts. That's why they call you an airhead. There is nothing in there. There are no thoughts in there. And that's why it says, we will rise and meet Jesus in the air. And out of that, Christians literally have put up postcards, and you can go in any Christian bookstore and see them saying, if there's nobody in this car, we've raptured. They think they're going to fly up into the sky. They have literalized this. It is bizarre. Can you imagine what kind of a God that they're dealing with? Not only is the guy going to start a nuclear war, but he is also going to blast people out of cars that are driving right down Route 9. And if you're not saved, you're going to run into a car with nobody driving it, and they're gone. And they could care less what happens to you, Kerber. They don't care. We're gone. What's going to happen to this good ceiling? You know how much this ceiling cost? Mike Roscoe came down here, put all these beams up in this thing. You people are going to blast right through this thing. Wreck all of this stuff. And you know the funny part of it, if it wasn't so stupid, that we turn around and we look at the ancient religions and we call them pagans. Is that something? And here's what we've done to the 5 stages of consciousness. We dunk people in the creek, and then we're going to blast them out over Kennedy Airport. Hopefully when they get raptured, they won't run into a 747 or something or start an accident. You submit the consciousness to the higher realm, which is the water. You are then up into the air, which is the 3rd stage of consciousness where there are no thoughts. When you have risen to that, you then come up into the place of fire, which is the altar, which is the place of the spiritual purging of all of your hurts. That is what the baptism, when Jesus said, or John said, I baptize you in water, but there is another who comes who will baptize you with the Holy Ghost and fire. In other words, you must submit your head, your consciousness, to that which is the lower rising, so that you can come up into the air and then be submitted to the divine. You must submit to John so you can be then taken by Jesus. Okay? That's what it is. Remember we were telling you about the origin of baptism back in Samaria? And it was to honor the water god, who was Ea, E-A. And when you translated Ea into Greek, it was Ionis, which means fish. And when you translate Ionis, which means fish, into English, it's John. Ea, the water god, and John are the same people. And so, then, we understand here about the fire, because we're not looking at a real fire. There is no fire going to come out of the sky. Unless you understand that the sky is your higher mind and the fire is the spirit. Then if you'll submit to it, what the heck do you just sit here and not do this for? I don't understand. I do not understand this. I don't understand why you don't get excited. Why do you want to? All you're doing is getting older. And you don't see as good. You can eat these things. Your hair starts waving goodbye. And still you're trying to combat with them. And I do the same thing. What's wrong with us? We're trying to make our way in this world. Where are you going to go? You're on a tennis ball going 40,000 miles an hour with nobody driving it. You're trying to make a security. Oh, I got security. Yeah, I got security. I live on a tennis ball. It's going 40,000 miles an hour. Nobody knows where it's going, but I got security. Where are you going to go? You say, but why don't you get excited about it? Why don't you understand this thing in the and stop sulking and stop snorting and snotting and all this thing of yourself and get up there and become one with the celestial being of the new age who is God? Why not? Everything is here inside of you. And Jesus Christ, who you got on all your Christmas cards and your bunny cards, he's the one who said the kingdom is within you. You're the branch. Why not take up on it? And I say to people, come down Sunday night, says in the Bible, you're going to have a special blessing in the book of Revelation. 6, 7 people come. Nobody believes it. Who believes this? It's a lot of junk. A lot of hogwash. I don't believe this. And they prove it because they don't show up. And then I get to think, well, gee, if I tell everybody to come down, they're going to think I want to fill the seats. What's the big deal if they fill the seats? I mean, really, what? After all of this lunacy we're going through, what's the big deal? It says in there, there's a special blessing. That doesn't mean that an angel... I wish I had... You know what I'd like to do? See that little hole in the wall back there? Can you see it? I'd like to have that, uncovered, and then I can make smoke come out, and I can come out in a white sheet, and come like that. And you'd all get freaked out. Oh, this is real. This is true. Whoa. He's another Kreskin. This guy Kreskin, can you imagine what an evangelist he could be? Because he flits around like that, and all. And he plays the piano. No, it's the closer. Walk with me. And then they turn around and say, are you thinking of number? What's the number you're thinking of? I'm thinking of 33. God gave me that. And he writes, and he gets it right all the time. And that's what they are. There was an amazing thing, because when I first started in the ministry, I used to touch people on the head, and they'd fall all over the floor and all that kind of stuff. And I was fine. I had such an ego out of that. I thought, I must be God. I mean, really. They're all over the place. One night, it looked like Custer's Last Stand. There was bodies all over. I was the only one standing up there, me and Geronimo. And they're all laying all over. The tables are turned over, chairs are over. They're falling all over the place. And so I really knew, I was going to be the great savior of the world. And then one night I'm watching Johnny Carson. And Johnny Carson has Kreskin on, the amazing Kreskin. I'm sitting there with my Bible. Oh, look at Kreskin in between my studying of God's holy word. I looked up at Kreskin. He says, I want to do something, Johnny. Give me 6 people. Would you line up 6 people? And I said, get about 6 people behind them, okay? All right, folks, going to take a little nappy. Okay, here we go. Bing, bing, bing. And they're falling all over the place. I said, John, there's 2 gods, me and him. Well, that was a rude awakening to emotionalism. But I learned such a great lesson from that, because whenever I do pray with anybody now, I'll always kneel down, because I really got on an ego trip by that. I mean, I was really hot stuff. Don, if I had continued that, you'd have to kiss my watch in order to come in here.
It's only your word.
You didn't hear that, folks. You didn't hear that, and we're going to let that one go by there out in the TV land, okay? These people, they act up in this place. But the upside-down altar symbolizes God's fire coming down upon the earth. You know what this is? That's Armageddon right there. God's fire coming down upon the earth. God's Spirit coming down against your enemies. Okay? Revelation 29. Take a look on page 238 of your little Bible. The rest of you go to Revelation chapter 20. Revelation chapter 20. And now you take another look at your altar. Take another look at Ara, your altar, and look at Revelation chapter 20 and verse 9. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints and the beloved city, which means the higher mind. And what happened? And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. Think in your mind, what is it that's bothering you? What is it that's hurting you? What's in it that depresses you? What is fire comes down from heaven, Ara, and devours them. In other words, those things that have hurt you, those thoughts that have hurt you, those fears that have hurt you. Okay? So it's the sacrifice of self. And that's why Paul said, present yourself as a living sacrifice in Romans 12:1. He says, by the renewing of your mind. Revelation 8:5 on page 230. Just real quickly, Revelation 8:5 says, and the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. Do you see it? Do you see how the Bible was written? Okay. Do you have that? Revelation 8:5. What does it say? It says, and the angel took the censer, filled it with the fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth. Now, your altar is facing down, and the fire is going into the earth. And that's why it says that. See? And it's talking about the spiritual fire that makes things right. So in Sagittarius, he who is the Christ comes to overcome. We lift ourselves in meditation. We lift ourselves in inner praise, the praise of meditation. And the praise of meditation is silence. Om. Chant. We are in harmony with the heavens. And the altar now, the sacrifice, bringing the fire down. And if you don't mind, just spend a few more minutes with me. I know you've been very patient, but I do want to cover the third deacon so we can wrap this up. And the third deacon in Sagittarius is Draco. Boy, even that name. Draco, the dragon. Draco, the dragon. But do you know something? Do you know what the word means? Aha! Draco, the dragon cast down. Now, who's the dragon? Who is the dragon? The dragon is that thing inside of you that roars and scares you and gets you to freak out like it does me. And it does. I understand that. The great, and now if you'll go to Revelation 12:9, page 233 in the New Testament, in your little Bibles, Revelation 12, okay, and let's go to verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth. That old serpent, the accuser, is cast down. The serpent is cast. You see, the reason Draco is cast down, if you'll notice something, what do you see unusual about the dragon? He's upside down. He's upside down. He's cast down. See? What you have here is Saturn Kronos. In the midst of the astrology of the zodiac, you have Saturn Kronos, who was the great dragon who was cast out of heaven. And do you remember how Kronos, Saturn, took over heaven? What did he do? He disarmed the Cyclops. Who is the Cyclops? What did Jesus say? If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. Each one of us in here has had our Cyclops disarmed. And we lost a single eye. And that's why we sulk. And that's why we're living in this constant atmosphere of many times, I don't give a darn. You know, I don't know how many times this week with work and with the things that I just wanted to board a train or a plane. Did you ever get it? You know what, when you get there, you know who's there? Draco. He's there too. He's everywhere. We get letters from all over the country. All the way up in Seattle, Washington, out in San Francisco, California, down in Louisiana, Florida, Massachusetts, Maine. Everywhere you go, Draco is there. Can't run. Can't hide from it. But that's Saturn Cronus. And how Saturn was thrown out and cast down to the earth, and the mythology of the zodiac was by the aid of the Cyclops. In other words, the renewed single eye that Jesus talked about, the pineal gland of the brain. So out of the emotional carnal mind comes the dragon. It says in Isaiah 27:1, he shall slay the dragon. That is the old sea, the raging emotions. That's your nature, the raging emotions. Did you ever, have any of you ever experienced your emotions when they get out of control? No, I know, I never have. That's Draco. That's the dragon. That's the dragon. The brightest star in Draco, if you have it, let me find it here. The brightest star in Draco is one called Thuban. You see it? Thuban. All right? Can you find that? It's right up where the turtle, towards the end of the tail, it curls up there. See Thuban? It means subtle. It means subtle. That's what it means. It means subtle. You know? Some people think that the devil comes in a red suit with horns, Mary Jane Guard. The devil's been known to come in a miniskirt, too, with a blonde hair and a powdered puff. Woo! That's the devil, Mary Jane Guard. And so it comes very subtle. In other words, it comes in a way that we think, this is good for me. So that's what they call a devil's food. You know? Yeah, if you're like me, you eat the whole thing, and then you're up all night looking for Alka-Seltzer or Pepto. You know, it seems like a good thing, man. I got to have this. Woo! I'm going to have the devil. Remember, who was it on TV said, the devil made me do it. Woo! What was his name? Flip Wilson. The devil made me. And it's true, because the devil is simply evil with a D. That's all it is. It's the lower mind, see? It's the thoughts and the consciousness of the lower mind. There is no devil other than that which dwells inside of each one of us. I say to people who want to see a picture of the devil, go to the bathroom. There's a picture hanging right over the sink. Turn the lights on, you'll look him right in the face. Oh, the devil. But you can also be an angel. It's in the same picture. So it depends. But I want to show you something about Thuban. Do you see Thuban? Thuban is a very important star. You know what it is? Thuban is a nautical star. But it's in Draco. And so that the legend, of course, in the Bible says that the dragon must fall. The dragon is being cast down. The star is being cast down. Thuban will fall. And do you know that this star is the star that long before they had all this fancy equipment for the ships, that is the star that they would use to navigate. That was the star. That was the polar star. That was the nautical star. That was Thuban. So when the ships at sea went out to navigate, they would follow Thuban, the nautical star. Now, I want to show you the connection, as you can see the connection in the Bible with this. Turn to page 237 in your little Bibles. The rest of you go to Revelation chapter 18. We're almost done, okay? I know you've been patient. Revelation chapter 18. Now, what would happen, see, if it says the dragon is cast down? Are you with me? If the dragon is cast down, then, of course, the nautical star would be cast down, and the ships wouldn't be able to find out where they're going, would they? Look at Revelation 18:17. It talks as when the great evil power is thrown down. Revelation chapter 18, verse 17. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company of ships and sailors and as many as trade by the sea stood far off, and they cried when they saw the smoke of her burning. You see? Do you see the connection? Draco, Thuban in Draco, the dragon cast down, and thus, when the dragon is cast down, those who would trade by the ships of the sea. It is simply saying, look up, understand the signs, understand the stars, and realize that that is within you, because the sea in you is the raging emotions, and when there is no more than all of those thoughts that have found a way to get in and hurt you will no longer be able to find a way to get in and hurt you. You see, the nautical star shines in the sky, and the ships can find their compass. But the nautical star Draco also shines in you. And that nautical star is used by those which are the merchants of your mind to destroy and hurt you and cause all the confusion in you. And when all that star is thrown down, and when the Draco and the dragon is thrown down, it says they will stand off, because they will no longer be able to find a way through that churning emotions within you to get you and hold you in bondage. That's what it means. This great psychology that comes along with the fact that it's biblical. So we wrap it up, the sign of Sagittarius. There are some other stars in Draco and the dragon and so forth and so on. But as we wrap it up in Sagittarius, we come upon the horse to conquer. We come upon the divine higher mind whose arrow drives deep into the dragon. We are in harmony as we find the place in meditation, and the sacrifice of the fire comes down to destroy. And Saturn is overwhelmed. You know, Saturn is overwhelmed by that which is the love of Christ, that which is the higher mind within us, that which is the divinity that comes out of Om, that comes out of meditation. So here then you had, what I tried to show you, which is important for all of you to see, was that you can look in your Bibles and see the descriptions that match up just like that with the stars that are in the heavens. And remember, the stars that are in the heavens were named what they are long, long, long before there was ever a Bible written. Long before anybody ever took a pencil and put it on a piece of paper to write a Bible, those stars said the same things. And that's a beautiful thing to know. Well, we had a good time having you here with us, wherever you may be. Thank you for coming along and being with us today at the Christian Village Church. The only thing I would